When my mother broke my arms by dropping me out of a two-story window when I was 5 years old, she covered it up and I didn't tell. And I used to think that I was protecting her because I grew up not telling, not saying anything. There were a lot of things I didn't tell. And I came to realize that I wasn't protecting her. I was protecting me from her. Because my experience in childhood, the few times that like my aunt would engage with me and say, I know that, things aren't okay with your mother, however she worded that, I don't remember. She would then, I thought, go and tell my mother that I told on her, but I didn't. I never told on her. And what I realized is my mother was preempting me telling my aunt anything. And my mother would come back at me and say, like, if I spent any time with this aunt who used to be my favorite aunt, she's not anymore because of the fact that all these years later, now that I'm an adult, she still stands with my mother. And she could choose to stand with me and never has. That took me a really long time to put together as well. Anyway, getting back to the protection of our abusers, we don't protect them. We protect ourselves, and telling puts us in a harm's way. Not telling puts us in harm's way. So if I spent any time with my aunts, this particular aunt, by myself, my mother would then come in and say to me, not with my aunts being there, she would say, I know that you're talking about me. And I would like check myself and I would believe I must have said something. And she'd tell me, listen, you can tell whatever you want to tell, but they all know you're crazy. And that this aunt in particular had said that I belonged in a psych ward and that she can't understand why my mother keeps me around. And so basically she would tell me that I was going to have to go to a shrink and then I was going to end up in a psych ward. And that's how she would keep me silent. So I had to stay silent. I had to protect myself. And what if I told and somebody knew what a damaged, horrible person I was, that my mother would treat me that way? So all roads led back to either me protecting myself from her or protecting myself from others believing about me what she taught me I was, which was damaged goods. So I want to read your comment because I'm hoping to give you an added perspective on what you feel about the responsibility that you're taking on for protecting your abusers. Here we go. Let's get into it. When I was a pregnant teen, my mother and ex-husband refused to take me to the hospital after my wrist was broken in an altercation. Clearly because they were afraid of the consequences. Unfortunately, at that stage, I protected my abusers. You were a pregnant teen. I'm assuming you had no place to go. And even if you did, you grew up underneath that abuse. Who were you really protecting? You weren't protecting them. You were protecting you. I don't even think we have the capacity to think about their protection. And I'm not saying that you didn't protect them because I don't know you. I only know this one comment. I'm just saying in terms of patterns of abuse and the way that victims react to that abuse, we stay silent because we believe it's our fault, particularly if it started in childhood. And we stay silent because we have to protect ourselves. When my mother dropped me out of the two-story window, I was around the age of 5, and she broke my arms. She had to take me to the hospital, but she didn't call an ambulance. She wrapped me up in a blanket, and she put me in a taxi. I was in and out of consciousness. And what she told the family and anybody who would listen before my mouth could even open up was that I was playing on a toy box that she told me not to play on. And I fell out of the window as a result. There was no toy box and nobody questioned it. So that's the other part. We don't have people to go to. How do you know who you can trust if you can't trust your own mom, your own mother? Who do you have left? And that's why finding out that a child is being abused unless there's external damage is so difficult. And so many people go about it in the wrong way. They don't understand that you can't go to the abuser and confront them. It doesn't work that way. You've now put a child in harm's way. And the other thing that people have a tendency to do is say to the child, well, your mother loves you in her own way. my gosh, if I had a dime for a penny for every time I heard something like that. So basically, what you're saying to me is my mother is a good person and I'm the bad person. You're doubling down because you're aligned with her. This is what a lot of people do. Oh, your mother's so worried about you. Really? Really? I don't think so. She dropped me out of a two-story window. And the worst part about that is it's one of the only physical, tangible things I can grab onto to explain the level, the depth that my mother would go to in her abuse of me. But those bones healed, and they didn't cost me something later in life. The emotional violence cost me hitting milestones of development that other people take for granted. It cost me the knowledge that I could set boundaries. It cost me the ability to love myself and grow up in that kind of love. It cost me my self-esteem. It put me in relationships that were abusive. It put me in harm's way in terms of times that I was pre-groomed for SAs, for CSA. That emotional violence did way more damage to me, took me much longer to recover from than anything physical, including the CSA that was ever done to me. So I'm with you here, and I just want you to know that you did actually the best that you could to survive a horrific environment, and it wasn't about protecting your abusers. It was about your instinct to protect yourself. Thank you for the comment and thank you for being here.